What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about creating an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about the 3 INFJ weaknesses that most INFJs are oblivious about. You know those typical weaknesses everybody talks about. INFJs are not detail oriented. INFJs are always in their head, always in their fantasy. They trip over things, but those aren't really the things that bother us. We know those most obvious weaknesses. We know how to handle them, and most of all, we know not to care about them. But what's much more tricky are those weaknesses that we can't seem to let go of, the things that we want to have, the things that we obsess over that get us into trouble, and mostly because we just haven't had the clarity that there are weaknesses in the first place. So this is what we're going to talk about today, how we can tackle those 3 weaknesses, what we can do to overcome them, and how we can use this knowledge to our advantage. But before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating an epic life on your terms and you want my help in it, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. So let's get right into it. The first and I think most detrimental weakness is our obsessive need to understand. Have you ever heard about that no matter what kind of personality type you are, you're very focused on your third function? This is the thing that you want so bad. This is the thing that you go overboard with. And if you're not careful, it can get you into trouble really easily. It's gotten me this way. So our third function is TI. TI is about making your own assumptions. It's about making your own system, your own conclusions, having a belief system that works for you. But very often, if we want more of that, what do? We try to understand something even better. This can be beneficial when it comes to understanding a new system. We've talked about it in the INFJ learning style video, how this way of thinking can generate amazing results for us because we have that exponential learning curve and we understand how the system really works. What are the underlying things that are going on that will help us to succeed not only in this one area, but in all future areas that have anything to do with that. But the weakness in it lies that we stay stuck on understanding things that we don't need to be stuck on. Most of the time, this happens if you, for example, encounter somebody and you thought you had a great connection or that person would understand you. You would have such great things happening in the future together, right? This is the perfect thing. And then the other person doesn't see it that way. Or you've done something that you feel kind of uncomfortable about. And yes, it was a mistake, but the other person can't forgive you or doesn't want to. And you're trying to convince them that you're a good person. And most of all, you're trying to understand why it's not enough. You try to understand them better. You try to understand the system better. You want to mold yourself into their world. Please be honest with yourself here. I know we have all done this. We've talked about this a lot on this channel. How if we're not careful and we go back into default mode, we focus on how we can mold ourselves into a system because we do understand it so well. For example, a work situation. You know what exactly they're looking for and you try to show those parts of you. You try to create that image that fits into it. There are even so many explanations about INFJs where INFJs are called chameleons. But understand this, just because you can adapt to everything and just because you can blend in every situation doesn't mean that you should. Because we don't have a limit here. So if you, for example, meet somebody and you feel, oh, we have this perfect connection, and then that person doesn't have any interest of having you in their life, what do? Because you don't want to let go of that person, you try to understand them even better. You try to understand their worldview even better so you can apply yourself into it. And this has caused me the biggest pain. This has caused my clients some of their biggest pain because it's something that keeps occurring without us thinking that we have a choice in the matter. It feels like the most natural thing. We go through life, something doesn't work, let me understand it. But if you get to a point where you look at the functions, you recognize that we're talking about the third function, meaning that function is less strong than we would want it to be. And if it's hard for you to see that in yourself, look at other personality types. Look at ENTJs or ENFJs, for example. Their third function is extroverted sensing, and you'll see how they go overboard if they're not careful in expressing extroverted sensing. There's this wish for power, and it's hard for them to let go of that. So if you have, for example, an ESTP who's all comfortable in their power, they're totally fine with letting somebody else take the reign. if this is the best way to go. They can relax from time to time. It's more of a thing, I'm really strong at this, I'm comfortable at this. If I want to, I'm great, but I'm not obsessed with it. I can let go of it in certain situations when it's not the best way for me to go. ENFJs and ENTJs have a much harder time with that. It can be very hard for them to let go of that urge to stay in power because it's a sense of control that they feel they would lose if they would let go of that. That's exactly how it is for us with our TI. Somebody with dominant introverted thinking. They have their own way of understanding things and they know when to let go of something. They're so confident in their strength of it that they can also look to other possibilities, get new ideas into their mind, and create new belief systems that work better for them. They are more calm about it. We, on the other hand, we feel if I let go of my urge to understand, then I lose myself. Because this is the thing that gives me control in a situation where I feel helpless. Because this is what happens if you're in a situation with somebody and you just got to know each other and you thought this works out perfectly, and then something happens and you're just dumbfounded. You don't know what happened. This worked so perfectly. It made all sense in your mind. If you have felt that there was no connection, or if you would have felt I wasn't the right person for this job, it wouldn't bother you. But it's the fact that you were so sure that you had the right understanding about the situation. And because now you found out, well, the reality doesn't reflect that back, I actually try to understand it more and more. I dig my heels into this, trying to keep control of the situation. And that's the thing that we call the NITI loop. Because every single time you get in a situation where you don't understand something and it should work, you always keep on going the NITI loop. And the way out of it is always the second function. Always. This is not just an INFJ thing. This applies to every personality type. In our example with the ENFJ and the ENTJ, their thing is to go more into NI, to let go of the control, to allow themselves to absorb the situation and then feel power within that, instead of feeling powerful and in control because they lean into the power of SE. Same thing for us. If we get into a situation where overthinking it doesn't make a difference, and you will know that this happens. If you've been in a situation and you try to understand it just better and better and better, and the results don't change, it's time to go into FE. It's time to go into extroverted feeling. But what does this mean? It means that you express yourself. Because the moment you express yourself, you create new dynamics with people. You create a new reality for yourself. It's like you change your reality realm altogether. Before, it was all about what the other person sees through their lens. You were focused on that. Or what kind of expectations were given to you by the company's worldview, so to say. But the moment you start expressing yourself, it's like you become more aware of your own reality realm. You become more aware of what you want, your preferences. And through that, you gain new knowledge, you gain a higher sense of abundance, and the future looks bright again. This is something that I have to continuously remind myself of, because if we're not careful, we always fall back into the third function. It's natural, it's our default state, and it's just something where you continuously in small steps have to work against. And don't be afraid that you won't go in the direction of TI ever again. You'll do this anyways. We just want to counteract that. Instead of trying to understand the other person, you express yourself, and through that, you just care less about the other person. You don't need to understand over and over again why they don't want you in their life. Let's get to weakness number 2, and that is our unhealthy attachment to harmony. Harmony comes in a lot of ways through our dominant introvert intuition. It allows us to stay a lot in our mind and to not disrupt the reality that's going on. Very often you've heard of INFJs being called the observer, and there are people who give quotes, even famous people, and they say, I've always been an observer in this world. And if you've read a lot about INFJs, specifically, let's say in the last 5 years, it's gotten a little better. It always sounded like that's a romantic thing. That's something that I'm proud of. I'm an observer. I'm not part of this world. I always feel like I'm different. And I always felt like that's how it has to be. I never felt like it's a choice. Because this is what happened in my mind. I saw, let's say, a group of 5 people, and they lived in their reality. And I never really wanted to be part of that reality. So what did I do? I stayed as an observer. I looked at it because it was okay for me to look at it. It was okay for me to observe it, but it wasn't interesting enough for me to actually go in it and be part of it. It just didn't attract me enough. What I understood much later though was that I had a wrong sense of understanding the situation. Again, we get back to weakness number 1. It was through me expressing myself that I understood that I had it all wrong. Because the moment you start to honestly express yourself, what happens? You disrupt the harmony of the group dynamic. That's a fact. Because from one moment to the other, you're not the sidekick to the group. You're not the sidekick to one person or the entirety of it. From one moment to the other, it's my worldview. And my worldview gets added to that group dynamic. It's an uncomfortable feeling the first time you do it because you honestly disrupt the harmony that has been going on so far. You have to become aware the moment you step into a group, the group dynamic is broken forever. It's not because you're an INFJ and you're so intense. It happens with every single person who honestly gets included into a group. You add your 5 cents. And before you know it, because of your input, it's a completely new dynamic. Because then it's not just you adapting to others. You also demand that others adapt to you. And through that, a completely new dynamic gets created. And maybe that dynamic is actually something that you like. But there's no way you can know this when all you know so far is the dynamic that you see while you're an observer. Those are two completely different realities. And once you start taking those steps, you actually see that this is fun, that you never have to feel like the observer again, that you get to create a reality where you're the hero, you're the star, you're the leading character of your movie, and all the other people are parts of that movie. They're the leading character of their movie, and you're maybe a sidekick to theirs, but that doesn't mean that they're not a sidekick to your movie as well. What we want to change is that you stay the observer or the supporting role in other people's movie from your point of view. So right, I don't want to create a movie where I'm the supporting role. If I'm a supporting role in somebody else's movie, that's going on through their head. In your movie, you have to be the center point, and you can never do that if you're not willing to disrupt a harmony that is going on so far. I recognize I mixed up weakness 2 and weakness 3, but it makes all sense, and actually you can combine it with weakness number 1 as well. So weakness number 1 is that we as INFJs have the obsessive need to understand. Weakness number 2 is our attachment to not disrupt harmony. And our third is that we make ourselves the observer. The moment you disrupt harmony, you allow yourself to connect through your authentic self. You are not showing up in order to maintain harmony. You showing up to show truth and authenticity. It's not going to be easy. You have to start with small steps because you've been conditioning yourself forever in this direction, but it's definitely possible. And it goes hand in hand with saying to yourself, I'm not going to be the observer anymore. I'm going to take lead in my life. I'm going to be in the driver's seat, and I can guarantee you, you can do this. Don't believe that INFJs have to always be the sidekick to somebody else, that this is the best way we operate. Yes, it is okay as long as we're just making it by, but the moment you say, now I want more from myself and I want it on my terms, I don't want to live that life that others think I should live. I don't want to be the person that everybody else would find cool. I want to do the things that give me freedom, that give me security, that give me fun, and make me feel like I have an epic life. And as long as you feel like the observer of your life, you'll never be able to tackle that. I really hope that helped you and inspired you to follow your dreams. If you haven't already, download the free poster on the 5 pillars. And if you want to take the next step and work with me privately in creating your epic life, you find all the information below. And remember, if you want to watch a video now that is aligned with today's topic, watch the video on the NITI loop, because there we actually go through the process of how to break free from that, go into our second function, and then stop being the observer of our life. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.